Hey guys, alright, we are back with extra history, or well, extra credits, another extra history. This time we're returning to Genghis Khan, the rivalry of blood brothers, number 2. Um, I didn't see a third part for the Danelaw series, so I'm assuming that ended after only 2 parts. If there is a third part, I couldn't find it. So, yeah. Anyways, we're gonna dive right back into Genghis Khan's story. Let's go ahead and, well, hear about the rivalry of the Blood Brothers, and I totally forgot what had happened in the first part.
It's a quiet morning just before dawn. In Temujin's camp, the family sleeps peacefully, thinking their troubles are behind them. They are very wrong. Even now, 300 Merkit soldiers thunder towards
That's
them
a
on
lot.
horseback, eager for a fight. News traveled fast on the ancient steppe, and the story of Temujin's daring escape and new alliance with Ongg Khan spread far and wide. His growing success got the attention of the Merkits, the tribe Temujin's father had kidnapped his mother from. They saw an opportunity to knock Temujin down a peg before he got too powerful. At Temujin's camp, an old woman was sleeping with her head on the ground, and suddenly she was awoken by the sound of approaching hooves. She alerted the
Okay, so this is very confusing. So, Temujin's mom's original camp slash clan that she was supposed to marry into found out about Temujin now. They're going to attack him. This is confusing.
camp. With little time to prepare for the attack, Temujin, his allies, his mother, and 5-year-old child all mounted horses and took flight. But Borte was left behind. Nobody is sure if she volunteered to stay behind, as her grandmother had, or if Temujin lost track of her in the confusion, or if he left her behind in a calculated move to give them all time to escape. But in the end, it was effective. When the Merkits found Borte, they halted their pursuit and took her captive. Temujin, for his part, fled to the mountains, lying low and following the elk trails he had known since childhood. 4 days later, he emerged, and seeing that the coast was clear, was overcome with gratitude for having survived. He vowed to always honor the mountains as the place of his deliverance. Temujin saw his survival as a sign that he was special in the eyes of the spirits, truly destined for greatness. But Temujin was devastated at having lost his wife. He had 3 options. He could return to his old camp and his pastoral life, but no matter how much he might build up and acquire for himself, there would always be the constant risk that some other enemy might come along and he would lose it all in another raid. He could head north toward the wooded, isolated lands of his childhood, but those desolate lands lacked pasture for animals. Living there would require his family to scrape by as he had in childhood, fishing and trapping and catching birds. It would be a safe life, but neither prosperous nor honorable. The third option was to follow the river south to seek the help of his patron, Ongg Khan. Though Temujin had declined the offer to take a position under Ongg Khan's authority a year ago,
I'm curious, because I don't know the answer to this. The sources for Genghis Khan, when were these written? And who wrote them? That's what I'm curious about as I'm just listening here to this story. I'm wondering. Because I have a feeling they're not entirely valid in terms of primary, because with the amount of land Genghis ruled, and just how strong of a person he was, and how long, his descendants would rule for quite some time, the primary sources revolving around Genghis and his family most likely are skewed, obviously, in favor. I mean, primary sources typically are like that, unless you can get a written source from an enemy or something, then you can, use the primary source of the friendly and the enemy to find some sort of middle ground. Here, I don't know enough about Mongolian history, or Genghis for that matter, to know about these sources. So if you know, tell me down in the comments. I would like to learn.
Now that his newly built life was shattered, it seemed the only way to recover his bride. Ung Khan was enraged that the Merkits had acted against someone under his protection, and offered Temujin 20,000 warriors to retaliate
God damn!
against them. He also suggested that they enlist the help of his childhood friend and blood brother, Jamuka, who had become Khan of his own tribe by this time. Jamuka had experienced his own adversities, having been captured by the Merkits and forced into slavery just as Temujin had. But he too had escaped. He had built his own following and was now head of his own clan. He was eager for a chance to take revenge on the Merkits and to help his blood brother, providing another 2 cavalry divisions to Temujin's force. They sent messengers back and forth across the steppe, arranging where and when to meet. Jamuka arrived at the appointed time and place, but Temujin and Ung Khan's forces took their time, meeting up along the way before proceeding to the rendezvous. When they finally arrived, Jamuka was livid. He had 6,000 men under his command, each with 2 or 3 spare horses. The army's 15,000-odd horses alone were grazing 5,000 acres of grass per day, to say nothing of the horses of the families already living in the valley. All of his soldiers were geared up for battle, sleeping in the rough, and eating through their limited food supplies, and increasingly anxious to get back to their families. And moreover, such an enormous force of men and horses were not exactly inconspicuous. Any wandering Merkit might have seen what was going down and galloped off to warn the others. Jamuka scolded Ung Khan and Temujin, who were like, yeah, fair enough, our bad. The combined armies made their way north to the Merkit camp, but this was the beginning of a rift between Temujin and Jamuka that would only continue to grow. The Merkits lay in wait across a river. Each soldier built a float of reeds and swam across with a horse. The operation was too large to be a total surprise, but as soon as the Merkits realized what was happening, they panicked and scattered. Temujin frantically searched the camp for his wife, calling out her name. Now, Borte didn't realize that it was Temujin himself coming to rescue her. Any number of raiders or rivals might have been attacking, and she was not up for being captured again, so she was fleeing with the rest of the war prisoners. But when she heard Temujin's voice over the fray, she recognized it, and sprinted through the battle towards him. As she ran to his horse and snatched the reins from his hands, he almost attacked her, thinking she was an enemy. But as soon as he recognized her, he called off the attack, dismounted in the middle of battle, and embraced her. It was a resounding victory. The Merkits...
This is a very romanticized history. So I wonder just how accurate it is. Or at least it's sounding very romanticized. This could just be their writing style. But I'm going to be skeptical when it comes to characters that conquer the world, because they're typically not romantic people.
Were scattered. Both Temujin and Jamuka had their revenge, and Temujin was quickly establishing himself among the Mongols as a leader. But their joy was short-lived. It was discovered that Borte had been raped by her captors and come back pregnant. 9 months after she had been rescued, she gave birth to a son. Temujin claimed that the boy was his, but because his paternity was never clearly established, the child would never be fully accepted as Temujin's heir. With the Merkits dealt with, Temujin and Jamuka's families combined their camps and lived together. At least for a time, the 2 men were inseparable, riding, hunting, eating, even camping together. They swore their friendship for the 3rd time, now as adults, in a public ceremony with their combined followers as witnesses. Standing before a tree at the edge of a cliff, they exchanged golden sashes, key symbols of a Mongol man's identity, as well as horses that they had looted from the Merkits. And because of his blood brotherhood with Jamuka, Temujin enjoyed an elevated status within the tribe. For a year and a half, things seemed ideal. But time has a way of changing things. Both Temujin and Jamuka were powerful men with aspirations to unite and lead the Mongol tribes. Jamuka supported traditional Mongolian aristocracy, where Temujin believed in a meritocratic method, and as such attracted a broader range and lower class of followers. Jamuka came from a higher lineage than Temujin, and over time began to treat him less as an equal and more as a younger brother or a subordinate. Temujin had killed the last brother figure in his life who had demanded subservience, so, as you can imagine, this did not sit well, and they began to drift apart. One day, as the 2 men were riding together, Jamuka suggested that they split up their camps, that Temujin should take the goats and the sheep and camp by the river, while Jamuka took the horses and camped closer to the mountains. This was a power move. Horses were the wealth of the steppe. Horse breeders, such as those Jamaica had descended from, were a noble class. Horses played such an essential role in battle and steppe life that they were a status symbol. The message behind Jamaica's statement was clear. He was asserting his authority as a horse breeder and treating Temujin as a lowly shepherd. Temujin was perplexed and returned to his family, relaying the order and asking his mother what she made of it. Borte overheard this and interrupted. She was angry at this betrayal and didn't trust Jamaica any longer. She insisted that they break from the group and set out on their own, along with any of Jamaica's followers who wanted to join them. They fled that very evening, riding through the night to gain as much distance as possible in case anyone decided to pursue. The following dawn, something strange happened. 3 brothers and their families, leading members of minor clans under Jamaica, caught up with them. Then more families from other clans caught up as well. In the end, many of Jamaica's followers chose to join Temujin. Now, they weren't the greatest of families. Jamaica still had the loyalty of the established leaders, but Temujin offered something that Jamaica could not: the prospect of advancement. At the age of 19, Temujin had taken...
Successful leaders and empires, for that matter, the most successful empires, if they're going to be long-lasting empires, they will have a system in place in which will allow for people to move up in society. Rome, while it certainly had a bunch of flaws in terms of its system, right? There were definitely families that, they had power and would keep power throughout generations, right? That's always going to be a thing throughout history. But Rome still had a system in place where it was possible for lower classes to rise up. China, the Chinese Empire, Chinese dynasties, they had the longer lasting Chinese dynasties, they had similar systems. Just the British Empire, for that matter, also had a similar system. Now, of course, that system was more beneficial to those if you were born on the British Isles, right? You could be one of the things that kept Ireland in tow and pretty much in line up until the Irish always fought the British, or the English. The Irish never really were subservient, but British were able to maintain relative control over Ireland for a good amount of time before they eventually rebelled and got their independence in the 1900s. But, there were plenty of Irish that would serve the British Empire in military positions or administrative positions, and there was opportunity. Same with the Scots. The Scots would find that opportunity. The Welsh, the invasion of Wales, was successful, and Wales was pretty much able to be subservient to England successfully because there was opportunity there for the Welsh. And also maybe killing lots of the native population helps, but if you provide opportunity, people will follow you most of the time.
Taken his first great step on the road to leadership and power. The rift between Temujin and Jamaica would grow into 2 decades of warfare, as each young man rose in stature as leading Mongol warriors.
How fucking old is Genghis at this time? He looks like he's in his 30s.
Accrued followers and built up their bases of power. They would grow from sworn brothers to the...
so much has happened in Genghis's life, or Temujin's life at this point, that it feels like he's in his 30s right now.
Bitterest of rivals.
I don't know what the timeline
splitting the Mongols
is.
into a vicious civil war full of raids and killings. Their rift was not just personal, but also ideological. As the rightful heir to his position as Khan and coming from a noble lineage, Jamaica was fighting to maintain tradition and aristocracy. Temujin was a radical who cared more about the quality of his followers' character than their heredity. His following was a motley band of mixed class and origin. He had fought his way up from nothing, going from a ragged child hunting rats in the woods to a respected military leader. His following lacked the legitimacy of Jamaica's noble background, but it was very appealing for those who wanted to find freedom and build a better life for themselves. The fight for the future of the steppe tribes had begun.
And that is Genghis Khan, The Rivalry of Blood Brothers, Extra History number 2 by Extra Credits. Yeah, this was pretty good. Again, my question still stands on their sources, so if anyone knows the answer, please do let me know. I would like to know what seem to be the sources on Genghis Khan, like where they come from and all that, the validity of them and whatnot. I'm actually really curious about that, because that's a question I have to deal with as an Anglo-Saxon historian, the questioning of the validity of a lot of sources, right? So yeah, I'm gonna end it there. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next video.